Recreation, arts, and entertainment as Sabbath rest. We're going to talk about that next on the Neon Fish Podcast. Hello and welcome again to the Neon Fish Podcast. I'm Kevin Newsom, your host. Thank you for being here, whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app. Today, I've got with me my guest, my pastor, Craig Thompson, who has been on the podcast before, and we are going to talk about recreation, entertainment, arts, and how these things relate to Sabbath rest. And so, you mentioned, so we're just going to get right into it. You mentioned in your sermon last Sunday about recreation being a form of Sabbath rest. So why don't you explain that? Let's start right there. Explain that a little bit, what you meant out of your sermon, connecting recreation to Sabbath rest.
Well, first and foremost, when we think of the word recreation, I think it's most helpful when we speak it differently. It's recreation. And that's really ultimately what Sabbath rest, at least in large part, is about us being remade into the image of God, right? We rest in that moment to be reminded of who God is and reminded of who we are in light of who God is, but also to be remade more and more into His image, so that as we worship, for instance, we're certainly honoring the Lord, but that worship is changing us and changing who we are.
Right. So how does recreation play into that?
Well, I think
like traditionally, when you think of recreation, you think of sports and activities like that, physical activities. How is that Sabbath rest?
Well, one of the things we talked about on Sunday was so much of rest really depends upon what the rest of our week looks like. When we think of Sabbath rest scripturally, it's built generally off the idea of an agrarian society, and in that agrarian society, everybody was working with all they had from sunup to sundown 6 days a week, and so a day of rest really was a physical day of rest, of relaxation, of refreshing, of recreation. But in that moment, in that particular situation, recreation or recreation then would almost certainly have been something that would have allowed them to rest physically and perhaps for their minds to be reinvigorated as well, but a physical rest because their bodies were so tired. Mm-hmm. For many of us in 21st century America, and even across the globe with the rise of knowledge work or the kind of work that, do they call what we do knowledge work?
Sure, why not?
Okay, but for people like me and you that work in an office all the time, we're indoors most of the time. By the time we're off, we get Fridays and Saturdays as our day off, just as a for instance. By the time that those off days roll around for us, a lot of times it's not that our bodies need a rest. A lot of times our bodies actually, physically, we need to do something to expend some of the nervous energy that kind of gets built up from sitting in front of a computer all the time. Our bodies may not need the rest, but our minds need the rest. We need something different to sort of release us from the everyday aspects of our normal workaday lives.
So when you're talking about rest, it's really different depending on what you need. Is it?
Yeah, Adam Mabry wrote a book called The Art of Rest. I did a podcast with him a while back. Cheap insert there. The
Ordinary Christian Podcast. Look it up on your podcast app.
Yeah, he talks about an avocation, an avocation as a way of resting, right? So that there are those things that we're not doing necessarily for financial gain, but we're doing them for personal growth. We're doing them because we find intrinsic value in the thing itself, and sometimes those avocations are the things that would take place in the margins of our existence, if that makes sense.
But wouldn't even if it's different, wouldn't like personal growth still be work?
Yeah, and this is we'll come back around to this in a few minutes. There's two approaches to look at this, and we didn't talk about this on the front. I think you and I may disagree on some of these things, which might be kind of fun. But we can look at. I think if we're not careful, if we don't think through it, then we only think of rest as the complete ceasing from doing anything, right? And
Okay.
and so certainly there's something to be said for that, and that's necessary at times in our lives. But if I'm an office worker, there's a lot of time when my mind is being reinvigorated, my body is being renewed, as it were, by engaging in physical labor, maybe reconnecting with the soil or doing things, building something with my hands. Because as I do that, what we lose sight of a lot of times with the day-to-day work that you and I do, we go home, by Sunday we might know what we accomplished this week, but at the end of the day on Monday, we don't always. Somebody says, "What'd you do today?" Well, I was busy all day long, but there's not something I put my finger on that says I accomplished it. And that has a way of building up a stress in our lives, and we're not the only people that struggle with that. A lot of people that can't look back at the end of the day and say, "I accomplished this thing," find that sort of being an overarching stressor that really robs you of energy, of joy. And so even though when you're doing something, for instance, in recreation, even though you're doing something that is work, there's a stress relief that comes in that sometimes, just to be able to stand back and say, look at what I accomplished today, that actually serves to relieve me or release me from the day-to-day stress that, at least personally, I experience of not always being able to put my finger on the one thing that I accomplished today.
It does seem like it's walking a very fine line, because you could take what you are calling your rest activity, and it could very easily become another avenue of work.
Yeah, and yes.
I feel like we need a better definition, maybe.
And you know me, I'm not always great in the details, but there's certainly the risk involved with that, and there's got to be a way that we mitigate or navigate those risks. That's going to be where community is involved, right? That's going to be the place where accountability exists. That somebody that just looks at you and says, "Hey, man, you're not taking time away. You're not resting." But even still, we shouldn't allow the fear that it could become a bad thing to stop us from doing something that's a good thing, just because it might not always work out the way we want it to.
So, I mean, it can be a hobby, but not necessarily a chore. I can go out and work in the garden, plant flowers, and if it's a hobby for me, I find rest in that. If I'm going out and re-landscaping, it's a chore. Okay,
that's a way good. So when I said avocation, that's what I meant with that. So I should have been a little more clear. But yes, there's a difference between re-roofing my house because it needed to be re-roofed and me building a garden shed for my wife, right? That one of those things would be a chore or a duty.
Sound both like chores to me.
Yeah, to you, but again, this is going to be where some of the personality things come in. You know, I enjoy building things with my hands. I don't do it that often, but I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy being able to step back and say, "Look at what I accomplished," and it's refreshing when I do those things. I went and walked some hunting land today. You know, I can go out on a Saturday with a chainsaw and clear shooting lanes or plant food, or even just for hunting, things like that. Those things are physically exhausting, but I still find them to be enjoyable and invigorating to some degree, you know? I mean, but then again, you and I we could even just talk about recreation or refreshment with maybe an exercise regimen. The things that I choose to do to work out, a lot of people would say that's stupid and that's exhausting and that's work. But
yes, it is work.
It is, but you know, but I can, if I go home tonight and I go out in my little, you know, garage gym that we have, and if I go out and I put in 45 minutes worth of heavy lifting in there, and that for me a stress relief, and that's not necessarily rest in the literal sense, but I'm going to tell you what it will do. It will allow me that little bit of recreation and release allows me to rest better when I go lay down to sleep tonight. Especially if I go home with something stressful on my brain from the day. Those things allow me to rest a little bit better.
And in a lot of ways, it's obvious how this can apply to creative outlets like painting and things like that. But on the other hand, those things can also become chores. I mean, you've just started learning guitar.
Yeah.
Is it rest or is it a chore?
Well, again, it's not rest, but it is recreation.
Right.
Does that make sense? And
it's getting there.
I would argue to say it's restful, even though it brings challenge. I printed out something when you told me that we were going to do this. I wanted to come and sound smart, so because I wanted to distinguish between entertainment and recreation, and I needed to make sure I did my homework because if you argued with me, I wanted to be prepared. So
sure.
I got this. The English word entertainment comes from this Latin word that carries the idea of among, across, or to hold or keep. So entertainment is that which holds the interest and attention. Okay, it's which holds on to you. Where recreation is to recreate, to make, or to beget. So recreation is that which renews and revitalizes us. Okay. So when I think about rest as recreation, we have to be careful because just because it's entertaining doesn't mean that it actually helps to recreate or to remake me into God's image. Likewise, just because it's challenging doesn't mean that it helps to remake me in God's image. And so there's a lot of things, for instance, that I would say are entertaining, but that really do absolutely nothing to enhance my life.
Well, we talked about the whole premise is Sabbath rest. So it's the rest. Does all rest have to be recreation?
Well,
Can it be entertainment?
I don't think it does, but I do think it's important that we distinguish between the two, right? So let's just take a Sunday afternoon where we're trying to rest. Let's just generally, you and I don't always get that opportunity. That's the joy of pastoring, but a Sunday afternoon for a lot of folks, right? Rest. Sometimes we can allow either our recreation or our entertainment to rob us of rest, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, if I go home tonight and Angela and I jump into some new Netflix drama, or perhaps we go home and we subscribe to Disney Plus and get The Mandalorian that we haven't watched. But if we were to do that and we start binge watching that at 8 o'clock tonight, and we watch, 5 or 6 episodes, we don't go to bed till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We were entertained for 5 hours, but we did not rest. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite,
Right.
So it held our attention, but did it actually change me in a positive way? Did it affect me? Did it remake me into God's image? Now, we can probably...
But, is that a necessary feature of rest? That
Which
you have
part?
to be changed, that you have to be transformed in some way. Can't you just exist and let your mind and body do nothing?
Yes, I do agree with that. But I was just coming back around. Where I was coming is to that very thing. If we're not careful, we could take a Sunday afternoon or whatever day we've set aside for rest and fill it up with entertainment. And we've sat on the couch the whole day, right? And we've been entertained in front of the TV the whole day, but we've not actually rested.
Right.
And so does rest have to be recreational? Well, I'm going to argue that rest is almost always recreational because when I'm resting, it's changing me. It's just that not all rest has to be recreation in the active sense. Is that
right? But there are an awful lot of people who find a couple of hours on Netflix is very restful and very reinvigorating for their minds, and they come out of some form of entertainment refreshed. Go see a movie and unplug from the world for 2.5 hours, and there's a invigorating quality to that.
That's valid.
So, and sports themselves can be entertainment. You have fans that are watching. That's entertainment.
Again, entertainment, but do I watch the Super Bowl? And do I finish watching the Super Bowl? And have I rested in that?
Well, if you spent 2.5 hours playing football, you can get to a point where you're not resting then either.
Absolutely, but that's the point. Like, I think just be careful that we suggest that entertainment equals rest, right? Recreation doesn't necessarily equal rest either. Rest can equal recreation, but recreation might not always equal rest. But and I'm not hating on movies. Like Angela doesn't enjoy going to the movie. She would prefer to sit on the couch and watch a movie at home. Even though it costs a small fortune, I love to go to the movies. I haven't gone since COVID, but I love, because of just what you said. I love the idea that you turn the phone off, you walk in, and for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, the world ceases to exist. And for me, that is fun. It's entertaining. It's enjoyable.
Recreational.
I don't know that it's recreational. I don't know that I would. Certainly, it can be, but let's just be honest. Most of the movies that we consume at the movie theater are not very recreational. They're very entertaining, but are they? Am I watching this? How often am I watching a movie that's such a stirring, powerful work of art that it's actually changing me for the better, as opposed to just occupying a couple hours of my time and helping me to escape from the world?
And the same can be said for novels, fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cheap. Nothing. I have a love affair with Sherlock Holmes since I was in elementary school. You didn't even know that about me, did you?
Sherlock Holmes.
I have read. I guess I've read every Sherlock Holmes story that's ever been written. I've read them repeatedly. I've read them in different formats. I've read them at different periods of my life. I've probably read Sherlock Holmes since I was in the 5th grade. As a matter of fact, I've got several of those on my Kindle. And I would say at least once a month, I am in a cheap Sherlock Holmes story before I go to bed at night. I mean, I really am. Yeah. But that's entertainment, right? But I don't think that I became a better human because of Arthur Conan Doyle's stories about Sherlock Holmes.
But at the same time, I'm not entirely sure someone like C.S. Lewis would agree with you that through his fiction writing, he's able to tell stories that have an impact.
Oh.
And so,
but I don't think that you could
stories and films and things like that
I don't think. I'm not sure that you can compare C.S. Lewis or maybe even like, Tolkien's work on fairy stories. That was Tolkien that wrote that. Wasn't Lewis, was it?
They both wrote one.
So, where they're talking about art. I'm not sure that we necessarily look at the cheap paperbacks from Arthur Conan Doyle and go, this is art that impacts, as opposed to something powerful like The Lord of the Rings. There's a huge difference between this dime store novel and this work of art, right?
Right.
And one of those certainly should move me. My kids are,
and one of them's just a McDonald's Happy Meal.
It is, and they both have their place. So what I don't want to do is walk away from this going, don't ever read Tom Clancy, because listen, you jump on an airplane, there's nothing like a good whodunit or one of these little Tom Clancy novels that you can flip through and finish in just a few hours. The time just flies by. But it's February, it's Black History Month. Are you going to publish this soon? So if you're okay, so it is. But if you listen to this another time, we're recording this in February, and so one of the books that one of my kids is going to be reading is oh goodness, Craig, Atticus Finch,
right? To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
I never read To Kill a Mockingbird until I was an adult. It was never assigned to me, and I realized some years ago that was a hole, and I read that. Right?
Same,
Did you? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So Wyatt's going to be reading that 8th grade English class, and so that book is a book that moves you. It's a book that has a purpose that you. I think you're hard pressed to not be changed in some way after
Right.
you've read that book. But it's more than entertainment, right?
Right.
Beavis and Butthead is entertainment. I mean, it is.
Sure.
You don't have to think it's good entertainment.
Right,
You know,
you're right.
SpongeBob is entertainment in that it holds you. Avengers movies are entertaining, and I guess I've seen them all. I enjoy them. They hold my attention. But I don't know that we walk away from those and go, wow, now I am a different man because of the way that Tony Stark handled that situation. Even in these Avengers movies, we look at them and when we see these places where they begin to move toward a very serious subject that they could do something, they recognize that this isn't who they are, right? And so they immediately turn to the entertainment aspect. Right? Was it the Infinity War? Was that the last Avengers movie?
That's right.
Right?
No, Endgame.
Endgame, right? So you've got this moment where they're going to win. Like, good guys are going to triumph over evil. Everything's going to be fine. And, you got the big bad guy, and he says, I am inevitable. And there's a moment for Tony Stark to have. He's had these serious moments through the movie. There's a place for him for them to put him with a statement that just is powerful and carries the Avengers universe into something that it hasn't been before. And so, I am inevitable, and Stark could stand up and say, and I am the picture of hope for humanity rising up against everything that you stand for. But he doesn't.
No.
What does he say? He says, and I am Iron Man.
Why not?
Right? Because it's all about, even in that moment.
Well, that bookends his story, though.
It does, but look, we finish where we should be crying or heartbroken or celebrating, and instead, what do? We're laughing, right? It's like, ha! Punchline. So it's entertaining, but you don't put that in the same category. So it's made millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's not the same category as To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right. All right, well, let's start wrapping this up. I don't think we completely landed in the same place.
We didn't? Where did you land?
I'm not entirely sure. I think that some entertainment can actually be restful.
Okay.
Probably more so than what you're arguing for, but I think we can say that rest is that which renews the mind, renews the spirit, up to the point, but doesn't cross the point of becoming work or slothfulness.
And
I think
we talked about absolutely, yeah. And let's flip it around, because one of the things we talked about that led to this from Sunday morning was that we got to be careful that we're not legalistic about this. Right. So you and I say that rest needs to renew the mind, but we say that because it's our minds that get drained throughout the week. That's true. For that guy that is working in lawn maintenance all week long. By the time the weekend rolls around, he might have had time. His mind may be fine, right? His body needs to be refreshed. Right. And there's a vast difference right there. So just being aware that we're not legalistic. Right. If you rest by cutting, if cutting your lawn is restful for you, then hey, let me not come and judge Kevin if I drive by and he's on his lawnmower on Sunday afternoon. But at the same time, if that guy cuts grass every single day of his life, and what he wants to do on Sunday afternoon is lay in a hammock for 2 or 3 hours, he's not slothful in that moment. He's doing what he needs to do to honor the Lord, right? Okay. We agree? Right. Sure. I'll agree with that. We'll end on agreeing. How about that? It's rare. Thank you, Craig, for talking with me about this, and thank you all for watching and for listening on the Neonfish Podcast, and we'll see you next time.